been on an interview and you were asked a question, and instead of your brain formulating a good reply, it instead tells your body to open mouth and insert foot, and some verbal diarrhea comes out? And you walk away going, well, I blew that, not sure where that came from. Yeah, I've done that before. If you haven't seen my NP journey video, check it out, because I've had a gazillion jobs. I've been on a lot of interviews, and I was asked to make a video in specific talking about nursing school and NP school entrance interviews and how to handle that. So in this video, I'm going to talk to you about what to do to prepare in advance, what to do the day of, some interview strategies, and at the very end, I'm going to offer you some sample questions and how I think you should respond to those. So if we haven't met yet, my name is Bree. I'm a nurse practitioner. I make content for nurses, NPs, and students, and it's nice to meet you. Preparation. So this should take up a good chunk of time for you. You need to study and plan for this, just like anything else that you're about to do in school. It warrants your time. 2 questions they are guaranteed to ask you, especially if you're going for your advanced practice. They are guaranteed to ask you why you want to do this and why you want to do this here. So you need to invest time in understanding your responses to both of these, not just so that you can interview well, but so that you can understand it for yourself to help sort out if you're in the right place. This is a big investment of time and money, and so they want to help get you to the place where you need to be. So the first thing is, know your why. Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to leave the bedside? Why do you want to advance your practice? What is your purpose and your goal in this? Where do you envision yourself in 5, 10, 20 years? Really do some self-reflection on that, write it all out, and have a prepared response that explains to them why this is your goal and why you want to get there. The second part of that is why that school. Now, to prepare for this, spend time researching your school. Talk to people who've been there before. Go to the school's website and research who the players are. i.e., you need to know who the faculty is. You need to understand who the director of your program is. Are they currently practicing, which is a big component? What is their background? Because a heavy focus on what they teach is going to be what they know. The other thing you want to do is download the student handbook and go to the section where the school discusses what their mission statement is. This is really important. It's only going to be a couple sentences long, but you need to really spend time breaking down what it is, what it means, and what your understanding of it is. There are going to be some buzzwords in there. When you're asked a question, use some of these buzzwords to show them that you understand what their mission is and that you are the kind of candidate who's going to support their missions. What I don't mean by this is to recite their mission to them. So if they ask you why you want to go to that school, don't recite their mission to them. They already know it. It's going to come across as false, and they're going to think of you as a brown noser. Do it in a subtle way. For example, if part of your school's mission statement is outreach, maybe in one of your responses, weave that in, okay? I have a passion for community service. I want to go out into the public and teach them about X, Y, and Z. Now, don't say anything that you don't believe, okay? Don't lie. But if somehow your reply can support their mission, it's a win-win for both people, and they love that stuff. That will ring the brownie point bell. An important part of the preparation, in my opinion, is to get this book. Okay, Knock 'em Dead by Martin Yate. This thing is a game changer, people. My husband is in business, and he gave this book to me when I was interviewing for my first NP job. I have never in my life prepared for an interview. It's very different when you're preparing for an interview as an RN, as an NP. Okay, look at me, nurses of YouTube. Check me out. We are not good with our business acumen. We are nurturers, we are lovers and supporters. We generally put ourselves last, but we're not the best hustlers, not as a general rule. So we need to become them. In the interview process, especially when you're interviewing for a job, but also in this setting, it can apply as well. You need to learn the art of hustling yourself. This book will help you do it. I'm going to include a link in the description below so that if you want to go to Amazon and purchase it there, you can. You don't have to buy it. You can get it from the library. These are available at your public library. You can borrow it from a friend. I just think you really need to read this and study it. It will really, really help you. I'm gonna have to ask you to forgive me for a minute. I'm gonna go off on a little tangent because this is a side note, but it's important to me. I am not doing this for financial gain. Okay, I have 2 jobs and a husband who makes a very good living. We're doing just fine. I'm not looking to get rich from YouTube. I'm doing this as an act of community service and because I'm passionate about it. So if I include links to products, it's because I believe in them and because I use them and I recommend them. It is not for the purpose of trying to get you to buy something. I could care less if you buy this through my link or not. Just obtain it. But if you do need to buy it and you use my link below, it does give me a very small commission. Okay? Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. In this book, it goes through a lot of what I'm talking about here, the preparation phase, how to handle a telephone interview. It talks a lot about getting inside the head of the interviewer, which I'm going to talk about later because I think that is very powerful. And it gives you a lot of sample questions. I think that's probably the best part of this book is the sample questions. I went through all these questions and I had an answer for every single one of them. And it helped because when you're throwing something from left field, you at least have something in the back of your mind instead of open mouth, insert foot. It helps. Preparation helps. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. This book is great. Get it. So moving on to the day of the interview. I hope that you have spent some time sorting out your attire. What you put on your body reflects what you think of yourself and what you think of their program. So I'm sure I don't have to say it, but you need to dress professionally and you need to put your best foot forward. So confidence is key. You don't need to go out and buy a $1,000 suit, but whatever you're putting on your body, you need to feel confident in. You need to feel like a boss. You need to feel like a boss, to act like a boss, to own it. My secret weapon, fabulous shoes. Wins every time. Now, I know this is really only a tip for girls. Fellas, I'm sorry. I don't have a magic bullet for you, but for girls, fabulous shoes. I love the idea of a power color for a woman. And for me, it's red. I always wear a little pop of red somewhere. Red shell underneath, and some fabulous red shoes. Not enough to overpower and distract, but enough so that they will remember you. And guys, I cannot even tell you how many times I have been on an interview with these fabulous shoes, or I have another pair of red heels. And people have come to me later and said, I remembered your interview, or I remembered your fabulous shoes, or I remember you because of your shoes. It's a conversation piece, and it's just, I don't know, it's my magic bullet. I don't have much else to say about it. It doesn't have to be shoes for you, but something that makes you feel good about yourself and powerful like the boss that you are, okay? So spend some time considering your attire. And if you think it doesn't matter, it absolutely does. Do not underdress. What to bring? Well, some water. So, you know when you're listening to that fabulous sermon and you're just moved to tears and you feel the power of Jesus moving through your spirit and you're so engaged, and then you just can't focus anymore because the preacher has cotton mouth and this little bit of spittle is forming in the corner of his mouth. And it's so incredibly distracting that you're losing the Jesus in the moment. We've all been there. Don't let that be you in this moment. Take your water with you. If you get nervous, if you get dry mouth, it can be very distracting to the person who's listening to you. So just bring some water with you. They may not offer you any, or if they do, take it up. But have some water on hand in case you need it. Simple trick, but there you have it. Be sure to bring your resume and your essay, plus or minus your transcripts. Now, they have copies of all of these things. I tell you to bring these things mostly for yourself, because when they're interviewing you, the sheets of paper they're going to have in front of them are going to be those items. That's what they're going to be looking through, asking you questions from. So if you wrote your essay 5 months ago, you need a refresher course on what you wrote so that you don't say anything contradictory to what you said before, because then you look really suspect. So bring it with you when you're sitting in the waiting room, read through it. The other tip on that is if there are any chinks in the armor, any spots of potential weakness, they are likely going to hone in on that like a beacon. If you made a C in a class, be prepared to answer why you made a C. They may ask you why you had a gap in jobs. Why did you take a year off? Was it to raise a family? Was it to do something else? I don't know, but they may ask you about that, so be prepared to answer it. Now, I'm going to offer you a side note here. If you made a poor grade or if you failed a whole year of school, it's fine. They've already vetted your resume. If your failing grade or poor grade was a barrier to entrance, you would not be there. So don't think this is a torpedo if they ask you this question. Just answer it honestly, but do not lie. Don't tell them you failed a year of nursing school because your grandma died. I mean, unless your grandma died, which I'm really sorry to hear, but how many grandmas die in college, really? How many times do you think they've heard that? Don't lie. If you failed because you were partying with the fraternity, just tell them that. You know, when I first started school, my focus was not where it needed to be, and I made some mistakes. I realized my mistakes at the end of the year, and I've changed. Nurses love overcomers. That kind of story could actually probably give you more credence. So don't be afraid to tell the truth, but spin it and show them how you have grown from your mistake. Don't lie. Last, but not least, is don't be late. I don't like when people are late. I think I've said this in several other videos, but for sure, when you are trying to put your best foot forward and make a good impression, you can't be late. If you're late for an interview and it's between you and another candidate, who do you think is going to get the position? It's not going to be you. And it may only be that one thing. And you may even have a good reason. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. I mean, what if there's unexpected traffic and then you're sitting in traffic and you have road rage and you're screaming at everyone because you're stressed, and then you walk in the door 5 minutes in advance and you're still there on time, but you sit down for your interview and you're a mess because you've been so stressed. Don't put yourself in that position. Y'all, be adults and be on time. Be early. Show up early. Refresh yourself in the bathroom. Put your arms big and wide and feel confident about yourself. Sit down in the waiting room, review, look over your essay and your transcripts. Be engaging and kind to all the people around you, because somebody in that crowd may very well be a part of the panel that's interviewing you, and allow yourself time to just relax and prepare for the interview. Okay, so let's talk about some interview strategies. Number 1, confidence. Confidence is king. Now, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and you do not want to cross it. Nobody likes that, especially professors and attending. So just tuck that crazy back into your pocket and leave it there. Even if you think you are God's greatest gift, tuck it away, people. Conversely, you don't want to look like a scaredy cat. You don't want to look like a weakling and a scaredy cat. If you walk in there and say, I'm not sure I can handle all of this, don't say that. Keep that tucked in the other crazy pocket. Okay, you need to be writing right in the middle. This is what I want to do, this is where I want to be, and this is how I'm prepared to handle it. That comes across confident, but not cocky. Okay, so some tips I have to help you build your confidence is this. 1, this is not a job interview. Okay, this is a college entrance interview. And if you're at the point where they're bringing you in for an interview, they've already vetted you. They're just wanting to see if there are any chinks in the armor that set you up for failure. Odds are pretty darn good that you're getting in already. Remember, they chose you. They asked you to come in for this interview, so they already think very highly of you. Secondly, they are a business and they want your business. There's a little bit of difference here between your RN programs, your ASN, your BSN versus your MSN. For undergraduate programs, they're a little bit more competitive. They're usually only a certain amount of slots. It can be a lot more competitive. There is often a wait list. So it can be harder to get into your dream school for that. And it can be a little bit more inducing of anxiety going into the interview. But I also don't recall going to an interview for my undergraduate program. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, and things may have changed in 20 years since I went there, but I never went in for an actual interview for that program. The other piece I want to tell y'all is, if you're going for your undergraduate program, yes, it may be more competitive, and yes, you may have to be waitlisted. There are fewer slots, but there are so many schools to choose from. And in my opinion, for your undergraduate degree in nursing, I don't think you should spend a ton of money. So maybe you don't get into your number 1 college pick, but you get into your 2nd or 3rd. I think that's perfectly reasonable. So try not to stress as much about it from that perspective. For the graduate program, it's a little bit different. There is less demand for that. There are less people going back to school for their master's degree, so it's kind of your spot. They want you to be there. They want you to spend all your dollars. So they need to sell themselves, and I think you should reverse the script. In particular, if you're choosing one of these expensive Ivy League schools like I did, They need to be telling me why I'm choosing them and paying $70,000 more for their degree than I am from Joe Blow down the street who can give it to me for $30,000. Now, I kind of already know the answer to that, but I'm not asking them that question to put them on the defensive, but just to show them that I understand that and I know I have options. So they need to sell themselves as much as I sell myself to them. Things that are going to bolster your confidence are the things that we've already talked about: your preparation, your timeliness, your attire. So spend time on those and you will have an appropriate amount of confidence and it will be reflected in your interview. Second interview strategy is to show your personality. They know what you look like on paper. They know what your resume is. They know what classes you've taken and what jobs you've had. Now they want to know what are you like? Who are you? Who is the person who makes up Bree? And is she strong enough to handle this kind of a crazy program? So show them that. Now this gets tricky, right? Because my third point is that you have to be succinct. You and I have both been in the room doing an admission database with Mr. Jones, and you've got 9 million questions to ask him, and then when you're done with that, you've got 20 tasks you've got to go do. And you're in the room, and you just want an answer to a question like, Mr. Jones, did you take your medicines this morning before you came to the hospital? What do you get? Well, I don't always take my medicine, but sometimes I take my medicine, but I think yesterday I took my medicine, but then, when Sally comes over, I don't always take them because it's embarrassing, no. Oh my gosh, just answer the darn question. Yes or no. It's real simple. I've got 20 more to ask you. So don't be that patient when they ask you a question and ramble on. You have to be succinct. You have to be prompt in your reply and show your personality. I mean, it's really hard to do all of that, but work on it. Practice. Do practice questions so that you already have something in the back of your mind to say and you can do it with flair, without going off on tangential thoughts. Another thing I want to talk to you about is thinking like the interviewer. Put yourself in their shoes. What are they looking for? Do they have 5 spots and 20 people they're interviewing, so they're looking for the person with the most time, the person who doesn't have a lot of distractions, the person that will make straight A's? Try and consider what it is that they're up against. Put yourself in their shoes and you'll be better prepared to give them the answers they want. Another thing I want to talk to, kind of related to this, is the difference between accreditation for undergraduate and graduate programs. Now bear with me, this is going to get a little bit heavy, but I'm going to break it down for you and it's going to be super relevant, so pay attention. Okay. When you're thinking about the motivations of the interviewer, they want your business, they want you there, they want you to succeed, but they also want to maintain accreditation. Okay. It's kind of like when JCO comes in the hospital. If JCO doesn't approve you, ain't nothing else can happen. The difference between undergraduate and graduate programs is that there are additional requirements that the graduate program has to meet. A post-baccalaureate program has to demonstrate curriculum and rigor, and they do this through knowledge of the literature / discipline and research / professional training. Okay, that's a lot of words. What does that mean? What that means is that the curriculum, i.e. the faculty, have to show that they're teaching based on extensive understanding of the current practice. Are they currently involved in professional practice or research? So how does this help you? Well, it helps you to know what the expectations for them are and that you recognize what those expectations are. So you can ask them relevant questions like, so are you currently practicing? How much do you practice? What is your focus on? You can also ask them things like, how do you understand and what is your interpretation of the current literature? Things like that, that show them that you understand the professional practice of what we do and what they're required to teach you. It's good. It will ring that brownie point bell. Okay, for the last part of this, I'm gonna go through some sample questions with you, and these are broken down into sections. You have the whys, which includes a where, you have the hows, and you have the dreaded tell me's, which are soul-sucking, awful questions. But preparation is key, people. All right, so let's start. For sure in the whys, we've already talked about this. They're gonna ask you, why do you wanna do this and why do you wanna go to school here? The where that's tacked onto this is, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? They may use any of those. So these whys and these wheres have a purpose. Their purpose is to get at the heart of why you want to do this, to make sure that this is the right path for you. Because again, they are here to help you find the right track for you. I went to school with a girl in acute care who started out interviewing for the FNP program. And in the process of that interview, when they asked her these questions, where do you envision yourself? The responses she was giving them fit more with acute care. And so they moved her into that program. So try not to think about this as like a sabotage attack. Moving on to the hows. So some of the hows I was asked were involving how I intended to balance all of my roles. So they may ask you a question, like for me, how do you intend to balance being a mom and working and going to school? It's good to have a prepared response to this. They want to know what your challenges are. Be honest with them with what your challenges are and explain to them what your plan is for your resources. They will most likely ask you if you intend to work. Be prepared to give them a response to this, and an honest one. Don't tell them that you're not working and then you work full-time nights and fail out of the program. You don't benefit anyone if that's what happens. They lose a spot, you lose. So don't do that. So my response when asked this question about work was, well, I love the fact that your program is broken down into blocks. So my classes were all in one block and my rotations were all in one block. I was working PRN, and I told them that I intended to shift my required work days into my clinicals, and so that when I was in school, and I was in school 5 days a week, I could focus on school and that be my priority. And when I was in clinicals and in my work days, yes, I would have a lot of days strung together, but I was prepared and ready to handle that because I didn't have tests and quizzes hanging over my head. And they really liked that response. It just shows them that you have a plan for how you are gonna do it. Work is not prohibited in most of the NP programs. I know in CRNA school it is. A lot of it will vary based on your program, but included in the how section might be some clinical questions. I didn't get any of those, but I hear that there are programs that do. So they may ask you questions relevant to where you're practicing or where you intend to practice. So I know ICU. So for example, they may ask me questions about how to handle a crashing patient, you know, the difference between vasopressors, other cardioactive drugs, things like that. So you might want to brush up on that. And actually, a great way to do this, and a great way to prepare yourself for school even, is to certify in your specialty. So for me, it would be CCRN. If you don't have your CCRN yet, it's the ideal time to do it the year before you go back to school. It helps to prepare you for how to study and how to balance studying along with your other things in your life. And it also kind of gets you more up to date on the current practices. Okay, bum, bum, bum. Time for the dreaded tell me's. These questions are awful. These are behavioral questions. They are designed to ascertain what kind of person you are and whether or not you can handle all the stress of school. What makes these questions so hard is that it requires you to tell a story of when something happened. And if you don't have an example of when something happened, it's hard to come up with something on the fly that doesn't make you look terrible, but also answers the question they're asking. So an example might be, tell me about a time when you failed at something. All right, again, keep this succinct. And these questions are hard because you're trying to recall a time, you're trying to package it and prepare it in a way that reflects you well, but also doesn't ramble for too long. Think about a time in which you demonstrated what an overcomer you were. Tell me about a time when things went wrong. This is pretty easy, especially if you've already been working as a nurse. There are a lot of situations in which something went wrong. It doesn't always have to be when something went wrong that you did. You want to demonstrate in your response how things were going terribly wrong and something bad was about to happen, and you intervened and prevented that from happening or mitigated the problem. But don't be afraid to tell them about a time when it was a mistake that you made, all right? Again, nurses love overcomers, so don't be afraid to show you're ugly, okay? It'll be fine. A very popular one in healthcare in particular is, tell me about a time when you spoke up for patient safety. I think every interviewer asks this question. Oh my gosh. If you've already been practicing as a nurse, this is pretty easy. You can always come up with a story where, you know, the doctor made a bogus decision and you saved the patient's life from the bumbling physician, you know, or something along those lines. But they hear that a lot. So maybe think of something outside the box, some other scenario in which you helped a patient without directly interceding with what someone else did. For example, say there's a situation where you're seriously understaffed, even the charge nurse is tripled, And you presented an alternative solution to administration, which they liked, and then also improved your ratios. Well, that indirectly, if not directly, improved patient safety. And that's a different story that they haven't heard. So I just encourage you to think about the kind of things that people commonly say and maybe come up with something a little bit different that makes you stand out. So that's it. That's all the sample questions I have for you today. There are tons more in this book. Again, my favorite book that I love. I think that if you prepare properly, you will do just fine. Remember, this is your position. The fact that they've asked you to come in for it speaks volumes. You're probably already a shoo-in. So stop stressing, just get it over with, and everything's gonna be just fine.